building on what we talked about earlier, we talked about trust. When it comes to the team members, they trust that we as leaders will not kind of like blame them or hold them to a mistake that they will make. I want to flip that over. Trust is on the other side as well, like me coming in to take over something from the founder, especially if we don't have a prior relationship, or especially if they haven't worked with me before. I feel like it's on me to build that trust with them enough that I can say, okay, David, I know what you're doing with this. And when it comes to this project or initiative or area, I'm going to let you run with it.
So I want to also kind of point out too, I think, David, your example of working closely with founders, I think this is a really fascinating concept that is pretty common in seed to Series A stage startups. It's when you get beyond that level, I think, is where this intricate form of trust needs to kind of be passed along from founders. No longer maybe have that directly. Everybody's coming to the founders, right? At seed stage, like that's kind of the thing. When you get to this point where you're putting in that next layer, and that it goes across a couple of different spectrums in terms of, you're right, the founders have to feel that comfort of letting go of, I trust that this, call it director or VP, whatever level you want to say that is, can take our vision and values and make sure that that's relayed appropriately through the next wave. And that's I think one of the most fascinating transitions, and that might be like A to B, where you've let go of those reins as a founder, and you're instilling that trust that the next level is going to confidently bring on the next wave of folks. And I always think that each stage of a startup has those intricacies. Anand, when you're in an organization that's larger, you've been with them for some time, and you also are a part of a number of mentorship communities. Have you seen like any, I guess is there any differences in that level of empowering, through those different stages, where it might be a little bit more intimate in that first handoff from the founders to the next level versus, there's 2 or 3 levels there, like call it Series C and beyond? I'm just generally curious.
Yeah, I think to your point, and as David rightly stated, right, there's a much higher kind of role on the founder's part to play in that kind of C to Series A. It is their job absolutely to make kind of the person stepping into some of their roles and responsibilities to make them feel comfortable and day to day kind of showcase that they are truly offloading kind of responsibilities, right? I often hear from folks that they say that, okay, yes, now you are driving this, but then there are still side conversations happening where decisions could be made. And then the person who feels that they're stepping into that learn that, okay, the founder or kind of the person who was historically leading it is still influencing the decision in one way or the other, actually. And that kind of causes this classic dilemma, actually, okay, how do I manage up? And that too at that founder level, which is the highest level for folks, right? So that exactly is, I think, where it's much more on the founder to make people feel comfortable and known that it's really hard to let go, but you need to start doing it actually iteratively to reach a point in like a 3 to 6 month time where there's a clear division of, okay, I focus on the strategic part, you focus on the execution part, or whatever that kind of split might be actually. For post Series C and D, it's a little bit easier because of kind of the team size, and then there are many peers in the situation. Your kind of day-to-day focus is a little bit fragmented. It's not kind of you're doing everything at once, where you're doing not only kind of technical feasibility, a little bit of biz dev, a little bit of P&L, everything you would do kind of in that seed to Series A ones. It's okay, you're more so in terms of we need to get more product market fit or drive more adoption or increase our kind of launch ARR. You have kind of a finite set of goals or parameters that you will play in. So then it's not that difficult in terms of delegating kind of a thing or two as you yourself determine kind of your next career path and growth opportunity in that regard. So that is a little bit easier transition, but the ones that are less experience in, I'm sure it's incredibly much hard as I'm hearing from folks in the industry and from you folks.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there's some founders who I was having this conversation over the weekend with someone else. It doesn't matter who, about giving up that control sometimes a little too early, or feeling like, oh, we hired this VP of whatever, they know what they're doing. So I do think that there is the other side, right? There is the, oh, well, this person's got it. And this gets back, I think, and onto what you were saying about really giving clear guidance and metrics, and like, let's make sure that we all are aligned. If there's good alignment, then that freedom and letting things go is great. If that person gives, if the founder or whoever gives up a certain level of control to someone, but there isn't that clarity of, are we actually going in the right direction, I think can be equally bad. So it is definitely, I think it's a balance, and, that's an important one to strike. But yeah.
Building on what we talked about earlier, we talked about trust. When it comes to the team members, they trust that we as leaders will not kind of like blame them or hold them to a mistake that they will make. I want to flip that over. Trust is on the other side as well, like me coming in to take over something from the founder, especially if we don't have a prior relationship, or especially if they haven't worked with me before. I feel like it's on me to build that trust with them enough that I can say, okay, David, I know what you're doing with this. And when it comes to this project or initiative or area, I'm going to let you run with it. And based on my experience, and I hopefully will get better at it, it will take months to get there. And it's an active role that I play as a team member for my founder.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think trust is something that is, without it doesn't scale effectively. The teams don't scale effectively. But let's dissect trust, because I think there's different ways of building trust with folks on your team. I'm generally curious on how you guys navigate this. Obviously, you're having conversations with folks, and I'm pretty sure. Are you both distributed teams, or Anand, are you in an office? I think, David, you mentioned that you're a bit remote.
Yeah, I'm remote as well, fully.
Okay. So, how you build that trust when maybe you aren't physically in contact with these team members as you once were, maybe, pre-pandemic, right? So, what is it that you all are doing to align this trust?
Yeah, I can say for me, when I started in this role 18 months, it was remote entirely, and it was pretty kind of new for me in the remote setting. I've historically been kind of an office person. So the number one thing for me was to show genuine interest, right? The difference between kind of listening and hearing. When somebody was trying to just try to form a rapport with me or kind of form a bond in terms of knowing where their genuine kind of interests and constructive criticisms lie, actually. So just wanting to make sure that I don't want to just hear as soon as they stop kind of saying something. I want to immediately rush to the answer, or just kind of impart my wisdom, thinking that I am coming into this role because of some specialized skills from the industry or something, right? I want to know exactly what are the constraints and kind of context that they are coming from in that regard. So that genuine connection initially really helps a lot. And then for me, kind of continuing to sustain that trust is simply around, as long as we agreed on something, let's kind of try to make sure that we are trying to do more or less the same thing, unless we keep each other in the loop that something changed or we cannot no longer do, right? The number one thing, as you said, is right, like you want to have some form of initial connection around clarity, get some information kind of bottom up in terms of, okay, this is what we want to do as a team. And then you go off thinking, I've empowered the team, they're going to do it. 1 to 3 months later, you come and they end up doing something completely different. There's no communication. There were no kind of red flags or signals all along. And that is kind of where the trust equation kind of just breaks down a little bit in that regard. So there is some form of routine upkeep and maintenance when it comes to kind of sustaining trust between two parties or individuals.